Hi everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, and I'm really excited to be introducing to you Alex, who's been a regular guest on ours on the L&D Companion. So I know Alex is going to do an introduction to himself, but for those of you that haven't joined some of the others before, I'd like to give a quick introduction. I've known Alex for well over 20 years now, and in that time, I've known Alex the radiographer, and I've known Alex the sonographer, and now I know Alex the counsellor. And it was very important for me when I set up the L&D Companion that I was able to draw upon the expertise of Alex in his new lens. And I hope everyone's going to be looking to enjoy it. And you've got some questions for Alex as he talks through his slides, which I'm going to be putting on the screen at the moment for you, Alex. In the meantime, Alex, I don't know if you want to do a very quick down and dirty for those that don't know you on your background, and then we'll shoot straight in on the Q&A on the slides.
Thanks, Fod. So yeah, as Foddy said, I've known Foddy for 20 plus years now. Like I said, radiographer, then sonographer, and then I changed jobs and became counsellor. There's always been a bit of an overlap between these jobs, but now I think counselling really fits in.
Sorry, my fault.
My ultrasound, and I think it fits and keys, and I hope the presentation, this one keys in with the previous two, and I'm more than happy to present them again at some time, but that's fine. So Foddy, when you're ready, I'm ready if you are. So I'm going to give you the title again. The human impact of imaging, how radiographers carry what they see. Like I said, this is important. What are we going to learn about tonight? What are we going to talk about? Radiographers work where technology meets human vulnerability. Imaging works often has a lasting or emotional impact on radiographers. Clinical pressures can affect communication, confidence, teams, and well-being. Counselling principles offer practical tools for resilience and support, and I hope we're going to get to that. It's really important. I know the slides are not working, but I'm just going to, So let's move on. Radiographers work at the intersection of technology and human vulnerability. Really obvious that it has to be said. We really do work at that level. Also, sonographers do. We can mix and match this, but we're not going to tonight. We're going to stick with radio. Every scan carries a human impact. That can be subtle, it can be cumulative, and often unspoken. But it's there. It's almost tangible. You can almost touch it and you can feel it. But we'll go into more depth about that. This presentation explores how the impact shapes communication, confidence, and well-being, and how counselling principles can support radiographers in processing what they carry. That's the important thing here, the processing. And you've got the skills already. We're going to move on to the next slide. The human landscape imaging. Imaging rooms, they hold fear, they hold uncertainty, they hold pain, hope, and distress. Radiographers can see this, they can sense it, and they can feel it. On every day, on every interaction with every patient, no matter what the room is, DT, angio, projection x-rays, it's there, it's tangible, and you can feel it. What do radiographers do in this situation? We know this already. Radiographers maintain clinical calm. They absorb the intensity of the moment. That's one of the many skills they have. They absorb the patient's intensity. They know to calm the patient down. They know to do what to do in this situation. It's almost a natural instinct. I would go so far to say it's a core instinct. And it's one they just know and feel and do. I think it's almost upon muscle memory. What else happens? The atmosphere can shift from patient to patient. So the first patient you're talking to is very agitated. They're so upset, they're worried, they're stressed, they can't remember their name, they're struggling with the date of birth, they're struggling with their address, they're even struggling with putting the gown on. We all know that one. Patients put the gowns on the wrong way because they're so worried. What happens to the next patient? The next patient can be calm. I get the scan every year. It's just a checkup. Don't worry, I know what's happening. But then the next patient can be somewhere in between the two. then the next patient can be above the top end of the scale, completely stressed, completely worried, not wanting to have the scan, doesn't see the benefits, but it's the stress and it's the worry that's causing this. But the radiographer is dealing with this patient after patient after patient. Or maybe sometimes the healthcare assistant is, or maybe but the important thing is you're dealing with it. Even if you're not face to face with the patient, the atmosphere is there, you know what's going on. What does counselling do in this situation? How can we help? Counselling perspective, presence and the traces that remain in these difficult moments. So the presence of it, let it stay with you, let it be there. Don't deny it, don't let it walk away. It's there. And the traces remain in difficult moments. You'll carry them, they'll be there. It's, like we said before, it's almost cumulative every day, every week, every month, every year. Skill here is and the bravery is to recognise it. But we'll talk about that a little bit further down the line. We're going to move on to the next slide. What radiographers see versus what radiographers experience. This is important. Technical precision, focus, and demands, and also the human connection we have to require sensitivity. Some people would argue the focus and the sensitivity are two separate worlds. It's very difficult to put them together. But radiographers can, because their focus is getting the right scan, getting the right images, transferring the images, doing what they do day in and day out, but also the sensitivity of turning to a patient and taking their worries, absorbing them, making sure they're in the happiest place they can be. It's not going to be the best experience of their life because they're so stressed. The radiographer will make it such, they'll absorb, they'll be seen to take away the worries. What else happens in this situation? Radiographers often know more than the patient, which carries a weight in itself. I think we've all been there. You get the question, did you see anything on the scan? Did you see anything on the x-ray? Do you know anything? What can you tell me? And what happens here is that that's another weight. And the radiographer will answer correctly. The images will be looked at by the radiologist, the reports will be sent to the consultants, the reports will be sent to the GP. It will be moved on as fast as possible. Don't worry, we've got everything we need. But again, there's a weight there. It carries a question and a burden. And again, the radiographer is doing really well, as always. Answering the questions, using the skills, using the micro skills, using their ability to deal with this. What happens after this? Maybe it's the end of the shift. Maybe it's the end of the evening. Some moments will stay with radiographers. Vulnerable patients, unexpected findings, complex cases will sit with you. And that will happen. And it's the acceptance of letting that happen and the acceptance of dealing with it. But it will happen. And you can say to yourself, well, we'll discuss this later, I'll deal with that later, or it's not really happening. But it is. Happens to all radiographers across all boards, all modalities. What's the counselling link to this again? I know go back to this, but it's important. Maybe the important thing here is to stay aligned with what's felt rather than pushing it aside, because it's not going to go away. All those worries, all those weights, all those concerns, all those things you've absorbed are sitting there. And you've done your job to the best of your ability. You've looked after your patients. Everything's gone swimmingly. You've done everything right. You walk out, but it's still with you. It's still there. It may, I say this once or twice, but I will say it, and again, it's cumulative. And again, we'll discuss that later. So we're going to move on. Let's go. The impact effect, how carrying too much shows up in practice. How does it show up? What's happening? Irritability, withdrawal, and reduced patience. Now, straight away, sometimes people think this is with colleagues, this is with staff, this is with patients. I'd say sometimes it could be with yourself. You get irritable with yourself. The withdrawal, you don't go to one of your colleagues' birthday parties because you're tired and you're thinking about work too much. And reduced patience can be with yourself. I should be doing better. Why am I letting this affect me? Why is it affecting me? And there's three things that you haven't, but it's all internally with you in your own world. Then you can take it externally. Maybe you're irritable with your colleagues. Maybe your colleagues don't notice, but your close personal friend notices because they know you well. The withdrawal again can happen in your life outside of radiography, but maybe it's the radiography world that's driving it. You don't go to the family party. You don't look after yourself. The important thing is that you do. I suppose the next thing is the heavyweight, worrying around errors and complex cases. As a counsellor, every month I go to supervision and I have to talk about clients and myself. I suppose, and they always say a good counsellor gives a piece of themselves. So this is me giving a piece of myself. I remember many years ago, as a sonographer, and I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning and I convinced myself I'd missed something on an obstetric scan. So it's 3 a.m. in the morning and I'm having this inner dialogue with myself. I know I've missed this. I don't know how or why, but I know I have. Now, luckily or unluckily, depending on which way you look at it, I'm living on site. I'm living in hospital accommodation. I can open my curtain. I can see the main entrance to the hospital. What do I do? Put on my scrubs, put on my shoes, winter coat, and plod across the car park. Flash my badge to security, looking a bit bemused why the sonographers come in at 3 a.m. in the morning. Open up my station, get my images up and check. Everything's fine. Close everything down, walk back across the car park, and then proceed to have the best 3 hours sleep I've had in a long time. The complexity, the errors and the worry were there for me, and they'll be there for everybody, maybe in different formats and maybe in different ways, but they will be there. Fatigue and sense of becoming switched off. Now, let's not confuse this. This isn't you're actually switching off. You're not caring. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not achieving what you're supposed to achieve. It's the sense of switching off. Did I ask that patient their details? Did I send those images? Have I put the right name on this? Have I got this right? It's almost the moment of self-checking yourself. Am I doing this correctly? Did I do it? 99.9% of the time, you've done it. It's that muscle memory. The hard bit is dealing with the feeling of being switched off when you're not actually switching off. But this is that cumulative effect I've been speaking about. Strain and team communication and dynamics. This is one of the other impacts. And this can be minor. It doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to be a disagreement. It can be something that's minor. You're in a scan. Your colleague says, "Hi, I just want to remind you about this." And you turn around and say, "I already know about that. Don't worry, I'm on it." And the person saying to you, "Well, I was just being kind. I was just asking you, just telling you." And then you go into second guessing yourself. "Oh, maybe was I a bit short there? Did I snap?" It's fine. Your colleague understands. You understand. It's just in that moment. That's the way you've got to give yourself that break almost, and that strain in communication will happen. But don't worry if it happens. Get through this. There is ways of coping with this. And again, I'm bringing this back to counselling. What we carry shows up in behaviour even when we believe we are coping. And it shows up to other radiographers. It may show up to colleagues in work in other disciplinaries. It may show up to your boss. It may show up to your partner at home, friends in the greater social circle. The important thing is here is the recognition of it, and don't worry about it because it's there and you'll deal. We're just going to move on to, I'm going to move on to my next slide. So the radiographer's inner dialogue. What are we saying to ourselves? What are we saying quietly at home to ourselves? What am I saying to myself at 3 a.m. in the morning about the obstetric scan? I'm so worried about it. I need to stay strong. Straight away, I challenge that. I think you're being strong already. You're doing your job to the best of your ability. You're working in a team. You're working in a multidisciplinary team. You're looking after yourself. You're looking after your patients. The question, John, is the doubt. You're doubting yourself. You are being strong, whatever way you want to define that. The importance is allowing yourself that moment to realise you're almost reframing it. I'm doing my best. I'm at my best. I know I'm looking after everybody. Maybe you're not looking after yourself. That's the point I'll make a little bit later. I do not have time to feel this. I need to push these feelings away. The problem with that is, like I said before, is those feelings won't go away. They'll be there. They'll be inside you. You'll be thinking them. You'll be feeling them. And if you try to push them away, it almost pushes them back. It's like a rebound effect. I won't think about this. I won't deal with this. This doesn't matter. It'll sit there. And if you don't think about it then, you'll think about it in a couple of hours' time, or you'll think about it in a couple of weeks. The one that would trip me up, I should be able to cope. Why can't I cope? You question your identity, you question your skill, you question your presence of being there. But again, I come back, you are coping. You are being part of a group. you're linking this to trust. Not only do I need to cope, I need to cope and look after my colleagues, and there's a trust issue here. It's not that you're not trusting your colleagues, that you're not trusting yourself as much as you trust them. I will go on to that a little bit later, but I want to make a point about that. But actually, let's make that point now, because at least if I make it now, so it makes sense. Radiographers are very good at looking after their patients. Then they look after their colleagues, and then they look after themselves. It's almost like a league table. So the patient comes first. Your colleagues, your mates come second, you come third. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm saying is there should be parity here. You should be able to treat yourself as well as you treat your colleagues, as well as you treat your patients. And maybe that comes from the coping, or the lack of coping, or the thought of lack of coping. I suppose from a counselling perspective, I would always say, why can't you put yourself on parity with everybody else? Why can't it be patient, colleagues, you, in a straight line, all level? You're not placing anybody above anybody else. You're not placing anybody's importance below anybody else. Parity. You're looking after everybody. These internal narratives shape well-being and professional identity. I've touched on this before. The well-being, the questioning, the inner voice, the dialogue, the doubt you're introducing to yourself. And you're doubting your professional identity. Do I want to be a radiographer? Is this becoming too much hard work? Now, we know the dropout rates. Let's not talk about those. Let's talk about the positives. Again, you're there, you're dealing, you're coping, the strength is there. But it's almost the bravery of admitting these things. Maybe I do need a little bit of help. Maybe I do need to speak to somebody. Again, like I've said before, how do we frame this from a counselling perspective? Reframing inner dialogue with self-compassion and realism. And that's just being honest with yourself. But reframe it. Am I coping? Yes. Am I doing the best of my ability? Yes, I am. Am I part of a team? Am I an important member of this team? Yes, I am. And my input into team is this important. And also the self-compassion and the realism. If I'm having a moment, I'm going to realise it. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to identify it. And what I'm not going to do is bury it, because I don't want this to be something that comes back in the past or in the future, or affects me today or affects me tomorrow. This is not saying you don't have this skill already. Radiographers do, but we're all human. We all react in different ways, and sometimes we don't react to our own benefits. We're going to move on to the next slide. Counselling tools radiographers can use in real time. Excuse me, just 10 minutes over. I do apologise. Brief grounding between patients. This one is nanoseconds. This ties into the micro skills I spoke about in the last presentation. Just in that moment between the patient, that 5 seconds, I'm doing well, I'm working hard, I'm keeping up with my list. It's just that reframe, just giving yourself that little moment to look after yourself. Steadiness after difficult cases. We spoke about how they can affect you, how you can carry them. Ground yourself. Give yourself that moment. That was a difficult case. It's come with me, it's laid with me, I understand it. But recognise it and look after it. You can do this. We can all do it. Against the act of being able to do it. Internal responses, the inner dialogue. Reduce the pressure. Reframe her again. I'm doing well. I am coping. I do have the strength. And don't judge yourself against other people, because you don't know what they're thinking and feeling, because maybe they're going home and talking it through with other people. Maybe you're not, or maybe you're talking it through with other people and they're not. Interaction's important. It's that level of, again, never put yourself below people, never compare yourself to other people. Recognising when additional support is needed. That's the big step. That's the brave one. I need to speak to someone. Who do I speak to? Who do I trust? Is it one of my peers? Is it my family? I understand about patient confidentiality and general data protection regulations, but you can talk about your feelings to people and how you feel and how you're reacting. Short reflective practice moments. I've spoken about that already, but it's important. Reflective. I can see it, I can feel it, I can think it, I can recognise it. I'm going to talk about it. I suppose from counselling perspective, how do all these tie together? Containment, regulation, and small reflective skills is just a counselling way of looking at it. Containment is about looking at it in a bigger perspective, not making it bigger than it needs to be. The skill is to contain it within its natural boundaries. Don't make the mountain when it's only a molehill. Don't make this completely huge when it's only tiny. But this is happening because you're doubting yourself, because the coping mechanisms are not kicking in. Regulation is just, as it says, regulate yourself. I'm okay. I'm doing well. Take that 5 seconds to breathe. And the small reflective skills, the micro skills, are inbuilt. They're there. It's like your DNA. Stick a black pearl rock, it's written right through you. The reflective skills, I'm doing well again. Looking after myself, looking after my colleagues, looking after everybody around me. But again, give yourself that moment. Be as kind to yourself as you are to everybody else. That's something we all can do sometimes, and it's something we all don't do sometimes either. So let's move on again to the next slide. Creating a culture that acknowledges human impact. So we're going to look at this. Normalising everyday conversations about the human side of imaging. Be brave enough to talk to your colleagues. Be brave enough to talk to somebody. And normalise it. This is how I'm feeling today. I want to tell somebody. Who can I tell that's safe? Maybe managers, superintendents, people who are in charge. Modelling openness and care. Sometimes it's not about under pressure. Sometimes it's about when you're in the CT scan or you're in the scan, you're working, and the superintendent walks through and says, "Well done, guys. Brilliant shift. You're doing so well." It's that information. It's that telling you, reframing it, looking after yourself, looking after them, but an outside influence going, "You're doing so well." And then you take that on board to yourself. I know I'm doing well, but somebody else can see it as well. Peer support that feels safe and not exposing yourself. Not telling the person who won't understand. Not telling the person who use all the classics, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. You should be able to cope." Why you're not coping? You don't need to hear that, nor do you don't want to hear it either. Talk to the person you feel safe with. Talk to the person you can trust. Talk to the person who's come to you. There's that ability to check in with each other. How are you? You had a tough day yesterday. How are you today? You seem to be having a tough day. But you know you can trust each other because you've done those mutual check-ins. Maybe that's the person you can talk to. Both building spaces where people can feel safe to speak openly. And those spaces can be anywhere. They can be with yourself, that inner dialogue. Give yourself the time. It can be with that peer support, the colleague you trust, the friend, your partner you trust. And it can be somebody outside of radiography. Again, we know the parameters of general data protection regulations and everything else, but you're talking about your feelings, how something's affecting you, not what the actuality of it is. The important thing is the bravery, the opening up to the right person, opening up to the right time. If your department and you feel that it's needed, gives you counselling, sometimes NHS departments will give you 6 sessions and you feel you need it, take it up. Sometimes you want to talk to a counsellor like me or other counsellors, be brave enough to talk to them, contact them. In my first presentation, if you're worrying about 6 sessions and 8 sessions and 10 sessions, you can go for single session therapy and counselling. Just the one session is enough just to get rid of the weight, just to tell somebody and to be open in that person. It doesn't have to be 6, 8, 12, 20 sessions. It can be whatever you need it to be because you know yourself well. When I tell every client that in the counselling world, you know yourself best. I would never be disrespectful enough to say, "I know better than you." I don't. I will listen and I'll use empathy and my core conditions. When it comes down to the baseline, is the client and radiographers know themselves best. It's just taking that extra step to care for yourself and to look after yourself. Again, how does this tie into counselling? How am I looking at it from a counselling perspective? For me, it's very simple. Shared load strengthens team resilience. Maybe not also team, maybe individual resilience as well. And sometimes in the counselling world, we talk about resilience, and it can be quite painful. You've got to stand up, you've got to be strong. For me, no, the resilience is the honesty. Is the moment you're going to find the peer support. Is the moment you talk to yourself with the inner dialogue where you reframe and you say to yourself, "I am really coping well. I'm doing my best here." That's resilience. It's not looking for somebody else to give you support. That's looking inside yourself. Once that happens, I'm going to go a bit counselling now. Once that happens, when you find that support, when you find that positive inner dialogue, when you realise you're doing so well considering your workload, considering the pressure, considering the patient throughput, then you'll reach a place where you go, "Do you know what? I am doing well. I really am. It's that support you give yourself. Sometimes you can't look for it in other people. Sometimes you look for it in yourself. Sometimes other people will give it to you, and that kickstarts it in yourself. Just be brave enough to do it. Simple, very simple. I think we're moving on. I'm going to summarise. Radiographers carry more technical tasks, and they carry human impact. We talk about the focus and the sensitivity, the two together. Do they balance? Are they in opposite? Can they overlap? It's probably a yes to all of them. Don't worry about it. Support well-being strengthens technical quality, communication, and patient experience. Support and well-being. Look after yourself, look after those around you, but don't put yourself beneath somebody else. Be as kind as you are to other people as you are to yourself. Be as kind to yourself as you are to other people. It's a two-way. Those small shifts I talk about, the inner dialogue, the positive inner dialogue, they really make a meaningful difference to you once you learn to do it. And it's a skill that you're not born with. I have clients from 18 to 80, and they're learning this meaningful difference, these small shifts, how to make them talk to themselves, how to have this inner dialogue. So I suppose, for me, I'm going to sum it up. Let us make space for what radiographers carry. Recognise it. Look at it, be there for them. I was at UKIO this year, and there's some amazing presentations about well-being and health. And one that struck me very well, which is in my next presentation. I've just had an email today that I'm allowed to quote. That, we QA machines and we QA all this wonderful, amazing equipment around us. We're not QAing ourselves. What about applying all that to ourselves? But if Froddy invites me back and the technical gremlins go away, maybe I can speak about that in December. Fingers crossed. And I hope you'll come back and hear me on that. I'd really love you to. Going to move on. This is the bit I really don't like. This is the Q&A. This is the bit where everybody catches me out. But at least
Yeah,
I'll
thanks
pass that over
everyone.
to you, Fod.
No worries, Al. Yeah, apologies on both sides actually for a bit of technical itch because we've actually the gremlins have been out on both sides today, Al. But yeah, thank you ever so much for that. And yeah, do you know what? It's such an important topic, and it's something that's almost a bit taboo in the whole workplace. But nevertheless, I think now it's not, it should no longer be taboo. It should be the elephant in the room that people need to be thinking about. Alex, from your perspective, how do radiographers notice when they're carrying too much from their work?
Probably in small ways. I'm going to tie it to radiographers and people in counselling. In small ways, feeling less valuable to yourself. Talking about that impatience, being impatient with yourself, not with the outside world. Sort of the tension between yourself and somebody else, little questions which would normally just wash over you. They wouldn't matter, you wouldn't blink, you wouldn't think about them. All of a sudden, you, a little mountain, a little tiny hill becomes a mountain. Like I said before about the two colleagues interacting, just want to remind you to do this, which is already caring and someone's looking after you. And all of a sudden, there's that sense of, who are you talking to? I remember to do that. And all of a sudden, there's that moment to catch yourself and go, I don't normally think and feel like that. That person's trying to help me. Why do I feel that in that moment? I'm not saying you carry it on. I'm not saying you build it, but it's just a moment, it's a second and recognizing. So small interim steps. And there's a great expression here that I don't want to Freud everybody, but there's an expression about feeling heavy in yourself. Not low, not unhappy, just feeling a bit heavy, a bit tired, not up to speed. And these small signs are early signs. So these are almost the precursors. And if you can spot and see these and feel these, it's so much better for you in the long run because you're catching something very early. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a couple more questions here, Alex. But before I do, Jess Davis has asked a question, which I think is a really interesting one, which is, Alex, how do you think well-being in radiography has changed over the last 20 years?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I left radiography in 2018, which doesn't seem that long ago, but it was. And I trained in a different time, in a different era. And we all look back with fondness when we trained and the places we trained in. I still do now. and I wear my radiography badge with a lot of pride. I think that my colleagues, my friends who are still in the radiography world tell me things are changing, but slowly. Sometimes most departments do have counselling available, and it's the 6 sessions, which are good. But then there's that counterbalance. Do people need to know I'm going? Will people judge me if I do go to counselling? Then there's the pressure that radiographers are under, and that's well documented, isn't it? Patient throughput, scans increasing, radiographers not getting jobs when they qualify. And is patient throughput becoming the most important thing? I don't know. There's so many factors. It's such a big discussion. So I would say, probably from my perspective and what I'm told, there is small changes afoot, which are very important. And I'm going to go very Freudian again. And the most important step of any journey is the first step you make. But if you're losing radiographers, if your radiographers are off sick, if your radiographers are feeling pressurised, if your radiographers leave, then there's something not right. That's not blame. That's not proportionate blame. That's saying what's not right. Why are radiographers feeling like this? So maybe the small changes are afoot, but maybe the bigger changes are coming. I hope they are. But going back to my previous presentation, also, radiographers can take a little bit of responsibility themselves, but in a good way. Be honest with people. Talk about your feelings. But again, in that trusting atmosphere, and I don't live in a utopia. I'm not naive. But there's got to be a happy medium where if you need 20 radiographers to run departments, you need 20 healthy, balanced, well-being, happy radiographers. If 2 or 3 of them are not happy, if 2 or 3 of them are upset, it affects your throughput. It affects the way you go. So it's a two-way street. But back to that parity. Look after other people the way you'd be looked after yourself. And everything moves forward in unison. It could be difficult. It might take time. But it's that bravery to go, someone needs help. Someone needs to offer the help. And there's that unison being together in it. So I haven't swerved the question, but I'm not going to sit here and tell people off and say they should be doing this and they should be doing that. Small steps are happening. Are they big enough? Probably not, with the patient throughput and the pressure. And we are speaking about the elephant in the room. And the point is to be brave, to say to somebody you trust, this isn't working, I'm not happy, what can we do about this? Because eventually it brings everybody up. Radiography is a team world, multidisciplinary teams. You're all dependent, you're codependent upon each other. And you're all supporting each other will bring that up. So I hope I haven't swerved that, but I'm just being very, very correct.
I think you in many ways, the one thing that I pick up from that, Alex, from what you just said there is, are we visibly seeing more people off sick? Are we visibly seeing more people unable to cope with the stresses and demands? Is that because over the years we may have eroded some goodwill and it's much harder to praise people because of that workload being so high. And I think that's something I picked up from that point, and also Jess's question. The other thing I would add to that is the importance of harnessing your team, harnessing that community aspect of support mechanisms around you. So that, I mean, I don't think you swerved the question at all. I think it was a good question. It was a very challenging one because it's really difficult.
It really
because
was
I think the stresses have always been there, haven't they?
Yeah.
This
is not about not dealing with them. Sorry. It's about the way it's viewed.
Sorry.
People look at things in people look at different things in different ways. And sometimes we don't all have the same view. The important thing is that we have a view where we're looking after each other. Because it's a team thing, isn't it? We're all looking after each other. I suppose I sound a little bit counter there, but I think that's everyday life as well. And there's fundamental questions to be asked, isn't it, in the radiography world of how radiographers are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the crazy thing we're all aware of is we know this isn't a radiographer centric challenge, but nevertheless, we're actually, we can't solve everyone's problems and challenges. And I think what we're trying to deliver here is at least one step at a time to work out how we can perhaps deliver this as much support mechanisms and pastoral care for radiographers. I've got a quick question here, Alex. I'm going to go back to the public chat, which is what can radiographers realistically do during like a busy list to stay steady without slowing the workflow?
It goes back to what I was saying before, those grounding techniques, now those micro skills, the 5 seconds to speak to yourself in a dialogue. Ground yourself in the 5 seconds. I should be working harder, I should be working faster. Take a breath and go, you're doing the best you can in the circumstances. Reframe it. What do we need to do next? You'll know what to do next. Just take that 5 seconds and say to yourself, breathe. I suppose I'm going to use a very northern expression. Give yourself a break. Not hours, not minutes, just seconds. And breathe. I'm doing well. I'm part of a wonderful team. I've got amazing colleagues. We're all under pressure and we can do this, but so can I. And just those minutes to ground yourself, breathe, and almost look in a mirror, but even though you haven't got one, you're doing well. Just reframe that moment. And you can also get it from patients. Sometimes you look for that external, it's called external locus of evaluation. That's a full counselling terminology. Patients will say, thank you. You've made my day. You've made me feel so much better about this than when I was coming through the door. That's down to you as the radiographer. That's down to the healthcare assistant. It's down to the physio. It's down to the speech therapist. You've made a difference to one person's life in that nanosecond. Take something from that, because they're not going to say it without meaning it. They're human beings. And they're saying it in the most emotional, scary, worrying aspect that they think there is in their lives. The scanning room, the CT scanner, the MRI, the angio, doesn't matter, ultrasound. And they've taken a moment to look you squarely in the eye and go, thank you. You've changed my day. You took away so much I was worrying about. Right there is that grounded moment.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know with regards to that, it's about how do we become better, Alex, at self-appraising ourselves in a positive way, and understanding, because I think as human beings we can be quite accustomed to veering towards the negative aspects. Five things go well in a day, one thing doesn't, and you dwell on the one thing that doesn't. And I suppose we just got to get better at self-appraising ourselves, right?
Or even the natural ability to dwell on it's fine in the short term, but look at it in real term. Is it that big? Should I be feeling like this? Am I making this bigger than the actual is? So you're not running away from the moment. You're not running away. You're saying, I'm dealing with this today. I'm dealing with it now. I feel like I could have coped better. Sit down and breathe. But I did cope really well considering the parameters and the circumstances. You're
Yeah,
acknowledging the one thing, the error. Let's call it an error. Probably isn't. But you're making it bigger than it is because, or somebody else is. Sometimes it can be someone else who says, well, you did really well today, except for.
yeah,
I did really well, but except for, you've got to find the negative of it. You've got to just take away that moment. So find it yourself.
yeah,
Say to yourself, I know I did my best today. And my patients told me, thank you, you looked after me. It doesn't get much better.
no,
You'd want that
definitely,
patient to be looked after like you looked after them. If it was your mother, your wife, your brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew, you'd want them to be looked after by somebody else like you're doing to them.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, Alex, we've got some more. In fact, we've got quite a few questions coming through. I've got one from Emma Law here, which um, do you feel the under? I mean, this is an interesting one here, so we can debate it collectively. But do you feel the undergraduate programs currently cover the weight the profession carries? Do you think the undergraduate programs prepare people or students accordingly, because I think this, as Emma puts here, she says, I think this can be overwhelming, not only when you are new to practice, but this weight as you become more senior becomes more heavy. This is subject not talked about enough, and it is more prevalent now than ever. And she says, I do really think this needs to be part of a mandatory training or within the undergraduate and apprenticeship programs. What do you think as
I'm
a
going to say yes,
counsellor
aren't I?
in terms of that? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to answer in two ways. As a radiographer stroke counsellor or counsellor stroke radiographer. When I qualified, I always remember my badge said Alexander Laidlaw. What it didn't say was newly qualified radiographer. Fresh in, first shift on his own. Now, it's terrifying. Of course it is. It's that moment of being the responsible person. The first x-ray you do yourself, the first ultrasound scan you do by yourself, and no one looks at it. So I'd say, yeah, there is a need to prepare people for those feelings, and it can be across all aspects. It can be across promotion up to a senior position. It comes with more responsibility. It comes with more responsibility of other people. Undergraduates, I don't want to scare anybody. I think if you qualify as a radiographer, brilliant. I wear my badge. I'm almost like I'm heart on my sleeve. But maybe, yeah, prepare them. Don't scare them, but be realistic about it. If this happens, so you're not scared, and you can say, if this happens, we'll help you. Or when this happens, we'll help you. And that can be across all spectrums. If you get the promotion and something becomes really overbearing, talk about it. If you're an undergraduate who's worried about your first night on your own, your first CT scan, whatever, talk to someone, talk to yourselves, ask for help. I suppose I'm a little old-fashioned. I believe in asking for help because I'm a counsellor. But ask once and listen once because someone's given you their time. But be brave enough to do that. Because asking the questions is important, getting is equally as important. But yeah, I also said this in my first presentation about I think there's room in radiography for counselling radiographers. We have midwife counsellors and they do an amazing job. I know I've interacted with them over many years. Why can't we have radiographer counsellors? Why can't we have placement tutors who've done small counselling courses? So they're listening with a counsellor ear, not the placement tutor ear. Why can't there be a duly qualified radiographer in a department that is a counsellor and a radiographer? That might encourage people to go to them because they trust them. They are a radiographer, they know them, but they take it into a different aspect. There's ethical boundaries in there. I'm not saying it would work perfectly, but there has to be somewhere where you can safely go and speak to somebody and not make it frightening. Don't say when it happens, say if it happens.
Yeah, interestingly, Al, I did hear there was a conversation I'd had recently that was said that as an absolute minimum, we should have one mental health first responder to every 100 members of staff, and even then, that was an absolute minimum. And it's interesting to your point there around that there are other healthcare professions that have like clinical professional counsellors, like i.e. they are midwives, but they're midwife counsellors as well. And I don't think we have anything, or if we do have something like that, it's much more isolated to certain maybe trusts that have decided to implement it, right?
Yeah, but we know midwifery counsellors are there for a very specific reason, which we won't need to talk about. But they still have counselling skills they can apply to everybody.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. The skills there, the listening there, the unconditional positive regard, the core conditions. I won't go on and on. But even I think someone talked to me about placement tutors. Why can't they have a counselling here? They're there to look after the undergraduates, the apprentices. Why can't they do it as well? Why can't they have that here? Because there's always that great adage is when you train to be a radiographer, you train to be anything, you're helped by another radiographer, you're helped by another sonographer, you're helped by another CT radiographer. One day you'll be in that position where someone's coming for you for help or training. It's a natural progression.
Yeah, the art of reciprocation, definitely. We've got a question here, and again, these are great questions, guys. Thank you very much. Alex, the question's from Megan Wilkins. What are your thoughts about the benefits of building time for human needs into the radiographer's job plans? What is the impact on efficiency, and what is the impact in terms of harm if we continue not to normalise human needs? There's a few questions in there, but I can break them down for you if you like.
That's a few in there. That's a great question, and I will just get it in order. So yeah, straight away I'm going to say yes. Of course there is that. You should be building in those timescales to look after people. But I would use it from both ends. If you're looking after your radiographers, you've given them more time. You are also looking after your patients. This is an interlocking situation. Yeah. You're not one without the other. And also, if you have better radiographers, that's the wrong word. Radiographers who are happier in their work, happier in the job, can see progression, feel valued, know they can go and speak to people. Then you have less radiographers leaving. Then you have less radiographers not wanting to be promoted because they're scared of the promotion because it comes with extra pressure. Now, I can reverse that and think of this in another way. I know two superintendents personally, very good friends of mine, who've both dropped their roles as superintendents and gone back to their, what were they called, the day jobs originally. I'm not going to give them no dollar. Because they went, I just can't deal with this. I can't deal with the pressure. There's no built-in security for me. There's no built-in time for me to take a breath. There's no built-in time for me to look after my colleagues. I'm told more scans, work harder, work faster. Why are you off sick? Instead of you're doing great, you're doing well. I've got 5 minutes for you. Just give me 10 minutes. I'll be with you and we'll talk. It's not a negative to build in a caring moment. The repercussions, the positivity just build. You retain staff. Why? Because your departments feel supported. It feels like they support you. You have staff within your department who are happier. They support each other because they're being supported. There's less patient complaints. I'm not saying it's right that happens, but it is in our world. Well, counsellors get complained about. Everyone gets complained about by somebody. Maybe you're looking at it from that perspective. We're so rushed. We're not giving our patients the value they need, they think they want. So the complaints come in, but they're coming against that radiographer. But the radiographer's done nothing wrong. They've been perfect, reasonable. They've looked after you, but it's just because they feel rushed. They want to complain to somebody. And it's a very old adage, isn't it? You know, when we did have banks in the high street, you go into a bank and complain viciously at the bank clerk, but you weren't mad at them. You were mad at the bank. But that was the representation of whom you were concerned with, or who you wanted to talk about. Radiographers are on the forefront. No, stand toe to toe with people at times when they're at the most emotional, when they're at the most weakest, when they're at the most scared. And they absorb it and deal with it and do it really well. But recognise that. So building times, building health times, mental health, healthcare system. Look after your staff. Because if you look after yourself, your staff looks after them, you look after them, it can only build. It can't not work. Again, it's not utopia. It's not, I'm living in a perfect world. It is that, look after each other because you can build together and you'll keep your radiographers. You'll keep them on site. They will want to be promoted because they can see progression and not progression under pressure, progression for the ability, instead of on a day-to-day basis, you look after 12 people and you do 12 scans. You become a superintendent sonographer and you look after 200 people as a point. See the effect you're having. You're looking after a greater number of people, but not feeling pressurized while you're doing it. And it builds and builds and builds.
Well, I think, Alex, there might be a few people asking whether or not you might be able to join them in their departments after tonight. But I mean, actually, there's been a lot of consensus between not only what you've been talking about, Alex, but between the conversations that have been going on in the public chat, which has been great to see. So Patricia Christie says she agrees with what Emma mentioned about, the challenges of not necessarily preparing some of our students. She said when she trained, she never considered mortuary cases, NIAs of children, both alive and dead. She says she also feels after a difficult trauma case, etc., usually the radiographers are not included in the debrief. And she also thinks that as a profession, this is a really important point here. I think she also says as a profession, other professions do not realise the enormity of being the first person to see an awful diagnosis.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Remember, I spoke about in my last presentation, you take pretty pictures. That was someone's opinion of my radiography career. And the lack of appreciation of what you're doing, of what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. When that trauma buzzer goes off, when you go to ITU and take the chest X-ray, and sadly you hear that patient's died, it hits you like a barn door, and it does because you care. Obstetric scans, and you tell someone the most awful news. You can't forget that news you've given to somebody. We're just broad stroking this. Radiographers, sonographers, CT radiographers, and angiographics all have moments in their everyday that are challenging and can be emotional, can be upsetting, and it's not good enough to go absorb it and move on. Do your best, pull your socks up. Those days are gone, or they should be. Again, I'm not living in the perfect world. I'm living in a world where we need to embrace it. We need to push forward together. And like you say, maybe the caring element comes. I remember when I qualified, my colleague went back a year later to our university to talk to the next set of undergraduates coming through about their experiences of how they felt. And I'm talking 20 years ago, but that's what they did. They invited a year qualified radiographer to go back and talk to the next undergraduates coming through. That's a really simple thing, isn't it? This is what I felt. This has been my first year. This is what I found difficult. This is what I found positive. And you're hearing it from someone's journey you're about to go on. You're about to qualify. You're about to go through your first year of qualification, of being the qualified radiographer. And I remember mine vividly. I wish my badge had said newly qualified. It would have took an awful lot of pressure off me. I know it wouldn't, but it wouldn't happen that way. But to see someone in front of you go, this is your journey in the next year. This is what's going to happen. This is what you may feel. I think that's got a lot of value in itself.
Yeah, it does. Wow, it definitely does. I mean, I think about a personal story to me, Alex, and ironically, this was at Lewisham Hospital with a certain CT superintendent that you and I both know very well. But I remember when my mother-in-law went in for a CT scan, and technically he wasn't supposed to tell me what the results were, but he knew in that CT scan. He knew. Now he kept very professional, but he knew what was on that CT scan, and we spoke about it after. And unfortunately, my mother-in-law passed away 3 months after of colon cancer. But I never forget, how professional he was. But he knew. He absolutely and to Patricia's point and to what you're just describing there, and Emma's point as well. I think these are skills that not all of. I'm not trying to pay detriment to some of the other AHPs, for example, but we are often the first line of this particular type of news. So I think the more things and opportunities we can have to talk about it is a positive thing, right?
Yeah, and I was talking to a radiographer the other week. It's funny you should say about when radiographers and cancer radiographers do placement times, and we go through the modalities CT, MR, and we do it all at times in there. Wouldn't it be advantageous if allied healthcare professionals swapped roles or went with somebody else? So a physio spent a couple of days with a radiographer. A speech therapist spent a couple of days with a physio. It would give you the insight into their world. Nothing like standing there saying, I know there'd be ethics, I know there'd be boundaries, I know there'd be patient permission, I understand all of that. But imagine just for a second taking somebody into a radiography world, not into a trauma, not into anything traumatic, but just seeing the pressure of every day.
Yeah.
Just that
Do you
moment
know
that you stand there and go, didn't know you did that. I didn't know that's what you did.
Sorry, yeah, apologies. I might have just talked over you there. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think managers need to be braver in making those decisions because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the first thing that you'd probably hear is we're all too busy to do something like that. But just to be brave to be
Yeah.
able to just say, to make that decision to say, hey, you know what, we've got so and so over from the physio department or for the OT department or speech and language or what have you, and. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, Alex, I've got one more question for you here, and then I don't know if you've got some closing slides that you wanted to share, and I'm going to show off
I
my
have it.
technical capabilities. You haven't? You're all done, yeah?
No, I've got
With
at
the
least one,
slides?
maybe two.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I've got two
brilliant.
to
So I'll
go.
ask you one more question from my end. Um, how can imaging teams acknowledge the human impact of the work without making people feel exposed?
Have the conversations we spoke about, keep them small and keep them concise. Know that you're doing well. Is there anything I can help you with? Very small conversation, very small sentence, but extremely powerful. Check-ins. As a counsellor, I've got a lot of bias towards check-ins. Of course I have. I should admit it. But they work. Check in. Check in with your staff. Check in with people who's working with you. Check in with your colleague. Are you okay? How are you feeling today? Tough day yesterday. These can take seconds, but they mean so much. And acknowledge the trust you have in your staff with what they're dealing with. I trust you because look at what you've done. I trust you because look at the throughput. Look at the pressure you're under. I want you to know you'd appreciate it. I trust you to do this. Not that you can't do it anyway, but I'm coming to tell you this. And make that culture of safeness and openness, but again, it's sort of in an open safe, which is conflicting in terms. Make it safe, but tell people they're appreciated. Tell people they're doing well. Because like you said before, if you do 99 things right, people will certainly tell you about the one thing you did wrong. So if you tell them about the one thing, shouldn't you tell them about the 99 things as well that you do right? And those conversations are
Absolutely.
small, but they're quick and fast conversations. How are you? How's it going? It's fast, meaningful, trusting conversations. I say it every day to clients. I go, I will start the session and end the session. How are you feeling? How do you feel now? And it builds trust. I understand in the radiography world, it wouldn't be so simple. But even on a one-off occasion, you stick your head through a door and go, how you going, guys? How's it going? It's that moment. It's the old adage, isn't it? You'll walk the gates of hell as long as you know someone's standing next to you. The importance of someone being with you, of trusting you. It is what it is. If you've got that trust, if you've got that someone next to you going, don't worry, we can do this. You're doing so well. You'll do anything because you feel empowered. I'm not saying you should do anything dangerous. It's the feeling of being empowered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's forgive me if I've shared this sort of saying on previous talks, but one of the things that always sticks with me was the Maya Angelou saying, Alex, which is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And God, when I heard
Oh yeah,
that for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's never a truer word spoken, eh?
it is, and you could. One of my favourites. That you could take that back to your patient interaction when you're speaking to the
Yeah.
patient and they give you that feedback. Look at it made because you've made them feel, or you've lessened the level of fairness or fear. So important. So do you want me to? I'm just going to recap. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. You crack on.
Right. So I'm just recapping. Radiographers work at a point where technology meets human vulnerability, and imaging often carries human impact. I think we've discussed that really well. And if I haven't, more than happy to have an open chat with somebody about it. But it's the most truthful thing. They make the worlds overlap. The emotions and the feelings overlap. They're so important. We've explored the human side of imaging work and the moments that stay with radiographers long after the patient has left the room. No, this is a time where this is not a nanosecond. This is not a minute. This could be days, weeks, months, years. Me looking at a scan 2 weeks later at 3 a.m. in the morning. The moment stuck with me somewhere in my deep consciousness. Somewhere it was there and it popped into my head at 3 a.m. in the morning. We've considered the weight clinical work and the effect of communication it can have on confidence, on team dynamics and individuals. We're all codependent. We're not independent. We're all dependent on somebody. The communication, how it affects one may affect them all. Now, I'm a grumpy 60-year-old. Maybe my wife will tell you I'm a bit too grumpy sometimes, but it affects people. I'm grumpy. The effect's there. You have an effect on people. Lastly, we introduced counselling principles and the practice, the real-time tools, the support, the steadiness, the resilience. I'm doing that northern thing again. Give yourself a break. Inner dialogue. I'm doing well. I shouldn't be coping. I'm coping not well. No, you're not. You're coping really well. What's ahead? I can't deal with it. Don't worry about what's ahead. You're coping with this, with now, today. And that resilience is about the openness conversations, and it's very difficult. I understand the boundaries to these conversations. We don't need to talk about them on here. But if you're brave enough to ask for help, and you're brave enough to ask for support from someone you trust, whoever that person is, it's going to lessen that weight. It's going to lessen that absorption rate. And sometimes I think radiographers don't see it until it's too late, or don't feel it until it's too late. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. Again, I'm not living in a perfect world. I just don't want people to feel like that. I'd rather they caught it early on, or somebody helped them to catch the feelings early on. But that's the support mechanism going on. That's my recap. So the next bit is just to say thank you. So thank you to Folly, as always, for inviting me on. I always say this, that I've said no to presentations at least 4 times, and here I am doing my 3rd, and my 4th is already written out and ready if Folly wants me to present in September. I want to thank L&D Companion, Skilled Personnel. I'd like to thank my wife for my slides, because I never do slides very well. My wife always does my slides. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I know it's late in the evening or early evening, and you've got your lives to deal with, and you want your tea and everything on, but you've been here for an hour and a quarter. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your amazing questions. And some of those questions have given me food for thought for newer presentations or later presentations. And thank anybody who's listening if this has been recorded. I just want to say, look after yourselves, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I suppose my finishing point would be, give yourself that break, because you're worth it, and look after yourself as well as you look after everybody else.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex.
Is that
Thanks
okay?
everyone for joining. You've been amazing, honestly, and I really, really appreciate the camaraderie in the public chat as well, and also for bearing with myself and with Al with some of the technical issues. It says to me how much amazing it is to work with radiographers. So you're all stars. Thank you very, very much, Alex. You're a legend. Thank you, mate. Thank you, everyone. And if you've got any questions, Alex has shared his contact details, but I'm going to share his slides with you as well. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys again soon. Take care, everyone. So,
I'm fit to contact if you really do want to. I'm always available for a chat.